All right, and we are live with another episode of Mentor Minutes. This is just an opportunity for leaders around the world to ask questions about real life situations that they're dealing with. Here we look to take the principles and the theory behind leadership and come up with some concrete practices that you can put into place. And hopefully that inspires you to improve your leadership and you pick up some tidbits that you can use in your work. Usually I start these things off with some questions I didn't get a chance to get to in the last episode, and I'm going to do that. However, I was reminded personally about a concept that I wanted to kind of reiterate to everybody and encourage everybody. And it's from Brian Tracy. It's not my idea, and it's called Eat the Frog. And what that means is that you take the task, the thing that is on your to-do list that you want to do least, that you don't want to do, that you are dreading, and you tackle that right away. And I talk a lot about using the first 15 minutes, the first 30 minutes of your day and focusing on your priorities, not answering emails, not even opening emails, closing your office door, and getting some momentum behind those big things that you have going on in your day. A great use of those first 15 minutes is to eat that frog, to take care of that thing that you are dreading, that conversation with an employee that you don't want to have, that write-up that you want to do, that email that you need to send out, the report that you've been putting off forever for whatever reason it is. So I had an incident like this happen in my personal life where there was just a task I didn't want to handle. And I tackled it right away in the morning, and it was amazing the lift that I got, not only in my outlook, but in my productivity, because those things hang over your head. Those tasks that you don't want to do hang over your head, and they inhibit your productivity throughout your entire day. So I encourage you to eat that frog. Take that task that you don't want to do, that you are dreading, and get that finished and get it off of your plate. Now, as we have people jumping on here, drop down in the comment section. Let me know where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions, definitely do that. What I'm encouraging everybody is go ahead and like this and share it out so it gets spread out to other people. The more people involved in this discussion, the more benefit there's going to be for everybody who's tuning in. Now, a question is kind of a little bit of a follow-up that I had to a question I got yesterday. Was when you are out for an extended period of time, so you take a medical leave, you're out on maternity leave, to have a surgery, whatever that is, you're out for 6 months. Now, what's happened in this case for this particular individual is the world has kind of moved on without them, is how I would phrase it. So a lot of the things that have been put into place prior have been adjusted away from. Some of those things aren't in place anymore, and they just feel out of the loop. It's the same coworkers, but it is a different dynamic now 6 months later. And this is if you face one of those situations where you're away from the workforce. It is often very similar to coming into a brand new position in a brand new organization. The pace of change in today's environment is lightning fast. And if you miss it for 6 months, things are different. You see that now that the procedures have changed, and the way people react to procedures and to each other changes as well. Things are constantly changing, constantly evolving. And so if you are away from the position, if you take a leave of absence for whatever reason, and you come back in 6 months later, realize that you are starting almost from scratch. I won't say from scratch like you're just coming into a position and you're complete unknown and stranger to everybody. But things are different. The dynamic will change. The procedures will change. And it's going to take you some time to get back into the swing of things. What I want to encourage you to do is engage. Okay? One of the big mistakes we make is when we face a situation that we're not comfortable with, or we're dealing with a person that we're not comfortable with, we often detach. When things are more difficult than we want them to be, and this is a perfect example. These are people you worked with. These are procedures you were familiar with, and now they've changed. You need to dive back in and force yourself to engage and push through those difficulties, and that will speed you along the curve to taking care or to getting back into the swing of things and feeling like a little bit more a part of the team. So as we've had people jump on, I'm answering questions on leadership and management live here. So if you have one, drop it down into the comment section. Otherwise, I'm going to handle a question I got offline And and it's a great one, and I know everybody will appreciate it out there, is what is the best way to squash drama in the workplace? So if you are a leader and you have a team that is just drama filled, it's like the latest episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. What you want to do is a few things. So drama and gossip flourish in environments where communication isn't great. And it can be that communication isn't great from leadership to employees, or it can be that the employees themselves don't have great communication with each other. So the first thing that you want to do is look for opportunities to increase the communication that takes place in the workplace. Now that can be you increasing the amount of communication that you have with the staff, so you're filling them in on what's going on with the organization. But another great cheat for this is to find opportunities for employees to start talking to one another better. And that can be that instead of giving one person a particular task, what you do is you give that task to two people to work on together. So you're encouraging them to have some sort of communication. Now, hey, I have no illusions that they're going to split the duties and go their separate ways, but there's a little bit of communication that takes place even in those sort of team environments. But you can also switch up the seating arrangements, arrange for people to have exposure to different individuals, but increase that communication as much as possible. That's one of the ways to cut out the drama and cut out the gossip. The other big thing is to handle things transparently. So when an issue arises that you can address, send out the email and lay it out publicly. Hey, I've heard some chatter that we're doing this, and that is not the case. We are not doing this, or the reason that we are doing this is because of this, this, and this. Get ahead of it with transparent communication so people are in the loop on things. What happens when you add more truth and transparency to your organization is that people will trust you more. They won't see as many hidden agendas. And that's what you want to cut down. That's where so much drama comes in, is the hidden agendas. And if you're transparent and they see through time that that was truthful and that was a transparent way of communicating, then that's something that is going to pay off down the road in decreasing that drama. Now, I also talked about hidden agendas. And so the third thing, so you're communicating, you're being transparent and getting ahead of issues. The third thing that you do to cut down on the drama in your organization and cut down on some of the gossip is to really tie everybody to the mutual goals. So what are the goals of the department? What are people's individual goals? Talk about those. Cameron wants to be promoted. Shelly wants to transfer to a different department. Cindy has the dream of being an artist or something like that. But get in touch with the goals of the organization so that people know what the organization is working towards, and talk about individual goals and where people are going. What that does is that kills those hidden agendas. That's the entire purpose. Feed the team more information and kill the hidden agendas that are going on, and you'll see your drama decrease dramatically. All right, that's a great way, and that's a great start for us here for questions. So any questions, drop down. I deal with this problem in a small group. Now, Shelly, in the case of a small group and gossip and drama, what I actually recommend is upping the transparency even more, where you might bring the group in together and you might say, hey, there's been lots of chatter right now about me and where I'm going in the organization. I just want to talk it out. So the communication that you have is more transparent, is dealing with these things. What also happens, I guess, for everybody out there too, as far as gossip is concerned, is when you call it out, a lot of this is happening in a vacuum. People don't have any repercussions for increasing the drama or for spreading gossip. And when you handle it transparently and call that out, that's actually a form of negative reinforcement for them. Oh, shoot, they're calling that out. Oh, they heard this. Oh, I have to, now everybody knows that we're in here because I was talking about this. So it's not done, the main purpose isn't punitive in nature. However, there is a side benefit for you in calling out the gossip and calling out the drama that will help diminish it even more. Nikhil has our next question, and it's how to handle a situation where high visibility projects are always assigned to specific people, even if there are other better skilled people in the team. So Nikhil, I'll tackle this as I disappear, as my notepad with the extra questions on here drops. What you want to do in those cases is you want to try to get ahead of it. Okay, so I want you to go to those people that are giving those high profile projects and say, hey, I noticed that you gave Nikhil, I'm glad that helped Shelly. I noticed that you gave Nikhil this project. If something like that comes up again, I would love to be a part of it. Okay, so make sure, and this goes for promotions. If you want something, you have to ask for it. That's a great life principle for everybody to take. But if you want a promotion, make sure they know you're interested in moving up. If you want the high visibility projects, make sure that you are interested. Don't be pushy and don't be judgmental that they gave this last one to somebody else, but make sure that they think about you the next time this happens to come up. And that's going to be something that helps get you in line. What you can also do is you can say, hey, I noticed you gave this to Nikhil. Is there any way that I can be a part of it? So if it's a big project where where it's going to take a team of people, is there any small part that I can take a part of? Again, you're expressing interest. You may not be able to tag on to the decisions that have already been made, but you can put yourself forward in being a part of the next big projects that go out to different people. So if you want something, Nikhil, make sure they know that you are interested in it. And you're not doing that as to talk bad about somebody else or to be judgmental about the decisions that were made in the past. You're just showing a general interest in doing more for the organization. I hope that helps. If it doesn't, pop down and let's do a follow-up question on that. So as we've had people jump on, any questions you have, any situations you're dealing with, employees that you're dealing with, that you're struggling with, go ahead, throw them down here on the in the comments, and I'll go ahead and tackle those. In the meantime, there is another question that I didn't get a chance to get to, and I will flip the page there. A great one, and that is, what would you do as an initial team building activity? So let's say you're forming a new team or you're bringing new people on. It's important not that it is an initial team building activity. That's what I really want to highlight. When we talk about team building exercises, a lot of people are taking it to be a one-time thing. You know, the big dramatic ropes course or trust falls or workshop that you guys go together. And that's great. I love those big events. But the most important aspect of team building is that you are doing it continually. And it's something I rarely see out there. There seems to be a problem with teamwork, so they go ahead and they do some activities. And it's great for another month or two, but it slowly but surely degrades perhaps. So plan on doing it consistently. Whether it is a simple thing that you do once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever it is. You can Google team building activities and find a bunch of very simple 5-minute exercises. They don't take a lot of time, and pepper them in every once in a while to improve that team building and improve the awareness. Now, it depends a lot on when we talk initial team building activities, it depends on what the goals are. And again, you'll see from all of the activities that are out there on the web that you can utilize, which ones fit with your particular organization. I will tell you that I generally, with teams that know each other, or teams that need, actually I'll take that back, any team, I like fun and silly sort of team building activities. It's just something that opens everybody's eyes and their minds to other ideas. I do this with my workshops. The workshops always start out with some sort of silly, what is actually a team building activity, but it gets everybody kind of going and breaks down some of those barriers to communication. That's what you're looking to do. My favorite really is 2 truths and a lie. And you can do this with an established team as well, where you pick 3 things. Everybody writes down 3 things about themselves. 2 things are true, 1 thing is a lie. And everybody has to go and pick what they think is the lie. And perhaps the person that fools everybody gets a prize. So you do some sort of incentive so that people put some fun stuff out there. But you will be shocked at the people who have worked next to each other for 3 years. The person writes down 3 things and that person gets it wrong. What you learn about other individuals in these team building activities is what helps create bonds and creates and fosters more communication. So my big thing on team building, regardless of what you pick, is to do it consistently. Once a month is perfectly fine, where you do a little team building activity and you refresh that on a regular basis. That's my big advice on that. Next question comes in from Ahmad, and it's organizations nowadays are going from the traditional manager or leader to coaching with team members more. At least this is what's happening in my in my company. Would you explain it more, Cameron, and any recommendations or books to read and get to know more about it? Well, a great one out there is by Michael Bungay Stanier, and it's called The Coaching Habit. That's a great book that's talking about things from a coaching perspective. But when we talk about leading and managing as opposed to coaching, a lot of what we're talking about is we're talking about specific instances. So you are using examples, and they are timely examples. When we talk about somebody who is coaching somebody in a sport, they're usually having them do a drill, and then they are critiquing that particular drill. But what coaching is also is it's a dialogue and bringing somebody in to the discussion. So it's not a you versus them. That's the issue with, say, traditional discipline. It's a me versus you sort of thing. Whereas a coaching is that we are all part of the same team. The coach is a part of the team. The coach's performance is evaluated on how well the team performs. And so you're opening that dialogue and bringing people in. So when you want to coach performance, you're asking people, hey, I noticed that this went on. What do you think we can do to improve it? I might recommend we do this. And then you evaluate them on that. And it is an ongoing discussion. It is an ongoing plan, and it transforms as you learn more and as you build that dialogue as it goes. Where you see leaders and managers in a more traditional setting is, here's the goal, here's how we're going to do it, go. And there isn't as much follow-up along the way. Whereas in a coaching mindset, there is a ton of follow-up that goes along the way. And that's really the big difference. And it's a huge benefit. I don't think that leadership and coaching are exclusive at all. I think it's a different perspective reaching towards that same goal. But a coaching mindset is a more involved mindset with the employee, where there is more teamwork going on between individuals and not so much one of those, hey, I need you to fix this, okay? So the next question that comes in is, is Crystal, and it's, most veteran employee is being intentionally defiant. I have addressed her behavior numerous times. Is there a way to get through to her? Nothing seems to work. The big thing is to try to find a way to show why her behavior is hurting her. All right, and I'm saying her, yeah, okay, it was. So what's in it for me? That seems to be the theme this week, is talking about that concept of motivation. People change their behaviors when the change benefits them. So we'll try to get selfish with her. What is the selfish benefit for her to change her behavior and not be as defiant? Also, look for that middle ground. Somebody being defiant isn't necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. That there might be a kernel of truth to that defiance. Why are they being defiant? Is this how they are displaying their opinion and trying to give their feedback? So look for those things. But what you want to do is you want to find the benefit for them to correct their behavior, and then you want to show how, second part of this is making it easy. I just kind of did a post on this in changing behavior. So if you haven't been to my Facebook page or my blog, check those out. I actually kind of have this lined out here. It was a follow-up I did to a question a couple days ago in regards to behavior that goes over this. But get the benefit for them and then show them how it is easier. The other huge benefit, and the reason that people change behavior, is one behavior is easier than another. And so show how and find ways to make that behavior easier. It may be that having these continuing discussions is a negative detriment. That's something that makes life harder for this individual. So continue having these discussions, not as a primary reason of negative reinforcement, but as something that has that side benefit as well. But those are the things that you need to identify. When you identify those, then you keep following up with that. Again, with all of these behavior issues, behaviors are very similar to habits, and it takes a while to turn those things around. But if you focus on the benefits to the employee of changing that behavior, it's easier to get them to buy in and start forging that new habit. Let me know how it goes. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions on that, Crystal, but I hope that kind of gets you in a different direction, and a good direction that you can work from. Nikhil asks, what is the right way to appreciate? We should appreciate individuals or address it to the whole team, even if it was an individual performance? The answer is yes, Nikhil. You want to appreciate in as many ways as possible. You want the individual appreciation. You want the team appreciation to reinforce teamwork. And one of the ways that you do that, so you might have a superstar employee who is constantly doing a great job. So you give them the appreciation for their individual achievement, but occasionally you basically use their individual achievement as an excuse to acknowledge and appreciate the team as a whole. You find that balance, okay? So look for, appreciation is one of those things where you almost can't do it enough. And so I really encourage you to look for different ways that you can appreciate. So you're not doing the same thing. Look and find creative and different ways. And that's one of the great ways, is taking superstar behavior, appreciating him most of the time as an individual, but then rolling it out to the team in different environments. And that's something that can be hugely helpful. Great question, Nikhil. Any other questions? I'm glad that helps you out, Crystal. And again, let me know how it kind of flows and what changes we can make to it here in future episodes. Any questions you have, drop them down. I'll answer them pretty much almost in real time. I'm caught up here. The next question that I got offline is it ever okay to skip a level in the chain of command with your feedback? And the way that I kind of throw this out there is it's something I prefer not to do. So you may have a terrible boss that's absolutely horrible. And so the temptation is to go above their head and call them out, if you will, or take your feedback in that direction. And I encourage you to avail yourself of as many opportunities as possible to not do that. The reason is it hurts your relationship with your immediate boss, almost always. But it also doesn't serve you as much as you think. Leaders need to be able to handle situations themselves. The better and more high profile and more impact the decisions and the situations that you deal with yourself, it demonstrates where you are in your leadership journey. And when you bring issues to your boss's boss that you should bring to your boss, it shows that you haven't learned how to deal with that issue. And that is a boss that's terrible. And so, rightly or wrongly, it can reflect on you that you can't handle some of those tough issues. And that's not something that serves you in the long run. So it hurts your relationship oftentimes with your boss, and it doesn't necessarily serve your long-term goals of moving on in the organization. So it doesn't mean that you don't do it. It doesn't mean that you don't kind of avail yourself of that if you've exhausted all other options and the issue is particularly important. But it is something that's kind of a last resort. What I do say in those cases, or in cases where you're tempted to, is what you're doing is you're bringing your boss's boss information. You're not necessarily questioning the course of action that has been taken. You brought that feedback to your boss, but you're bringing that person information. So it's not tattling, it is informing. And so you're trying to spin that in a little bit more of a positive light. And that can be something that's helpful in those cases. Tom, good to see you here again. Positive feedback to the higher level. That's a great add-on, Tom. That really is. Positive feedback, bringing that up even further, up the organization. Again, this goes along with talking about those positive things more and more. Too often we talk, and you saw it right there. I didn't talk about the positive things you might bring up or skip level. I immediately went to the negative, and that's so much. We deal with problems, and we're focused on problems in our leadership. But yeah, bringing positive things to the higher level is always great. Bringing them as high to different departments, anywhere you can talk about positive things, is something that's going to be helpful for everybody. And that's a great way to support your boss as well, is taking it to the next level and talking about them and bragging about them to their boss. Thank you. I appreciate that follow-up, Tom. That's a huge one. Ahmed has the next question, and it is, when two employees start getting jealous of each other and each one acts immature to grab manager attention, same time each one tries to stab the other in front of the manager to change how it deals with him or her. Advice. Ahmed, in regards to these interpersonal problems, and again, I kind of went through it yesterday on this, but it's important. And so if you didn't catch it, here's another chance to kind of get through. I actually look to bring two people like that into the office, and I talk it through very matter-of-factly, very plainly. I demonstrate what I talk to them about what I see. I ask for their opinions on certain things, but this isn't a discussion between those two individuals. You're mediating that discussion. And what you do is you look to find the common ground and the common understanding. So, hey, we want the two of you to both move up in the organization and to both have the accolades. All right. But this isn't a zero-sum sort of thing. There's plenty of accolades and plenty of positions for you all to move into. So one of the things that's going to help you is your ability to get along with other individuals. And that can be in a professional manner. So you're finding that common ground or bringing that understanding. Most disagreements have some fault that lies on both parties. Okay? Somebody says something that wasn't intended to be taken the way that another person takes it. All right? This person could ask for clarification. This person could have phrased it better. So both are at fault on a certain level, but you talk through that little bit of understanding. The other thing is, you don't have to get along with and like every single person that you work with. That's not reasonable. However, you do have to have a professional relationship that fosters and encourages the right behaviors and right results for the organization. And that's something that everybody can kind of tag on to. Hey, we know that. But tie them to their goals, tie them to the goals of the organization so they see that we're all on the same team on this. But talk it through very frankly, bring them in, and just try to put an end to it. And you can have follow-up discussion later on this. Now, Ahmed, this is something that isn't necessarily easy. And so the first 1, 2, 3, 5 times that you do it, it might be a little dicey. And that's fine. You're learning. But once you get a little more comfortable with this, you'll find how powerful it is in managing those little interpersonal issues that everybody sees and affects more than just this particular person that you're dealing with. Great question. I hope that helps. Let me know if you need any clarification on that as well. So anybody out there, if you got any questions, I'm caught up. I'll answer the question here in real time. So go ahead, throw in your 2 cents and let me know what you're dealing with this week. Another question that I have is, what can I do to improve morale? The usual things aren't working. And I love that. I love the fact that you've been working on at least the usual things. What I recommend in these cases where you have morale and issues and you've been trying to work on it is open it up to the floor. All right. And the reason you want to do that is 2 things. You want to see if there is some negative thing that's going on that you don't see and you're not aware of, that's kind of undermined all of the usual motivational efforts on your part. The second thing is you're looking for new ideas. And so you can bring in and start with your superstars, those employees that you have the best relationship with who are going to give you the open feedback and say, hey, I've noticed that motivation really has kind of been waning over the last week, month, 2 months. Is there anything going on that's causing everybody to get down? And then you follow up with a question, is there anything that you think we should be doing that would motivate the staff, that would motivate you? And so talk first with those people that are most apt to give you feedback, and then work your way through those people that are middle of the road, and then really you finish up. We've built up some momentum, you've built up some ideas, some information, and then once you have one-on-ones with those that are the most demotivated or the most negative. If you have a decent-sized organization, by decent size, I mean 12, 15, 20 people, you're going to have at least 1 or 2 that are kind of negative all the time. Have that open discussion with them. I've noticed that morale has been slipping just a little bit, and motivation is slipping just a little bit. Is there anything that's going on out there? So talk to your employees. This is something that's very consistent with a lot of my advice out there. And that is, don't try to come up with everything yourself as a leader. That's very limiting. Bring your employees into the discussion. They see things from different angles. They have that different perspective from being on the ground. And it's just bringing more brains into the discussion of a particular issue. None of us is as smart as all of us are. And so engaging your employees when you have a particular issue that comes up, whether it's motivation, whether it's performance and getting better sales, all of those things, open that discussion up. You can have it in a team environment and an individual environment, and preferably you have it in both, because certain people prefer one-on-one and certain people would not prefer a one-on-one and would rather talk about it in a team environment. But that's one of the huge things that can help you from a motivation standpoint. So I've come here to the end. Dennis, I'm glad you like that one. If you got any questions, Ahmed, I'm glad I'm here to be able to support you. It's a pleasure to be able to do that. But anybody have any questions? I'm going to have about 10 seconds for another question to pop up here. As I end all of these, if you've got any questions after the fact, drop them down into the comments. I check the comments out before of the last episode, before I jump into this episode, so I can kind of follow up with people. But you can always direct message me on Facebook. You can always email me at cm@cameronmorsey.com. I'll respect that anonymity as far as the answer is concerned, so it doesn't get outed to the world here on Facebook Live. And always, I love it if you jump onto the podcast. I'll have links after this video is finished, and you can always jump on those podcasts, and that you can take it with you, listen to it in the background. It's a great way to just get some exercise there. I will tackle this one, Dennis, and that is accountability. A couple of ways to tackle accountability is, first, you want to get crystal clear on your expectations. There is an old joke that's told in management consulting circles, and it is about a CEO who calls this consultant in, this personal coach, to deal with a manager who is underperforming. And so the consultant comes in, talks to the CEO, and says, okay, well, what exactly is it that you would like this manager to be doing? And so they write out this list of things that the CEO wants the manager to be doing. And so the CEO, the manager starts improving. You know, the consultant starts working with him, the manager starts improving, and 3-4 weeks down the road, there's a complete turnaround. And the CEO calls the consultant in and says, these results are fantastic. What did you do with this manager? And the consultant goes, I just gave him your list. The first thing with accountability, that long-winded story, the first thing with accountability is to make sure that everybody is clear on the expectations. What exactly is good performance? What is satisfactory performance? What is excellent performance? Come up with those tiers. I almost guarantee, if you've got a dozen or more employees, I guarantee you there are several of them that do not know exactly where the performance guidelines are. And that can be for a variety of reasons, but getting crystal clear on what your expectations are first and foremost is the key to accountability. The second thing is following up, and you follow up in a few different ways. Preferably, you come up with some way of tracking performance. If you are in a sales environment, every day you track individual performance on sales, or you track weekly performance, depending on how your reporting mechanisms work. But put it up publicly. You want people to be accountable? Then start talking about things in a public forum where they see where their performance lies in relation to their peers. If you need to keep it anonymous, well then fine. Use employee numbers or use code names that people come up with individually, whatever it is. But track that performance. Now, beyond tracking that performance in a public way is continuing to follow up with them and then coaching that performance. If you want people to be accountable for things, then you need an environment where that accountability gets called out. So whether it is weekly or bi-weekly one-on-ones, whether it is, if it's a one-off task that you're looking for accountability, and I know that's a lot of what people talk about with accountability is, hey, I give people something to do and then they don't do it. Ask for updates. First of all, actually, back up a second. Be crystal clear on what your deadline is, because that helps people prioritize. Then ask them about that deadline. Does that seem reasonable to you? A lot of times leaders will give a deadline and the person's like, what are you talking about? I've got all these other things to do. So open that up right off the bat. Here's when I need this by. Okay, but I've got this, this, and this. Okay, that can move. This can move. This needs to get done by then. Oh, does that sound more reasonable? Oh, okay, yeah, that'll work then. So you handle that issue up front of prioritization. But the other thing that you do with accountability is you get updates. So when we talk like standard performance, you're having those weekly, bi-weekly one-on-ones, or you're talking about it, posting it in some place public. That's great. But if you're talking about one-off things, where's an update? Okay, I need you to get this done by the end of the day. At 2 o'clock, I want you to come with me and come back to me and let me know how it's going. That's a great way of, again, getting ahead of those issues. And it doesn't have to be a lot. This is Cameron coming to Dennis and saying, hey, Dennis, just so you know, I ran into this problem with this. Okay, well, this is how you're going to handle it. So you can give that feedback, keep it on track. Okay, that's not micromanagement unless you're asking for an update every hour on what's going on. All right, asking for one update or two updates, depending on how the schedule plays out and how long that project is just you keeping informed and you being able to address any issues that come up so that at the end of the day, you go, okay, where's that project I gave you? Well, I ran into this problem and I couldn't get it done. Well, shoot, that doesn't help anything, okay? So get clear on the expectations, and if it's one-off tasks, those expectations are often a deadline, and then talk about it. As much as possible, talk about it. The more important those things are that you want to hold people accountable for, the more you want to talk about it. Publicly, in one-on-ones or in one-off cases, you talk about updates. And that can be something that's really helpful as far as driving that accountability forward. Dennis, I hope that helps. If it doesn't, then drop down again into the comments or private message me and we'll kind of work through it, okay? All right, I'm going to sign off for today, everybody. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, subscribe to the podcast. You'll see the links up above there, and I'd love to see you there as well. Take care, everybody, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.